Okay, Nicole, we are live.
Wonderful. Well, my name is Nicole Miller, and I cover marketing and sales for Sunbright Solar, and I'm here with our Director of Sales, Dan Shippers. In today's video, we are going to be covering how to read your Tucson electric power bill so you really understand how much you're paying month over month, year over year, and can properly compare it with your expected savings from going solar. Um, we are going to be covering the current rate structure, the export rate, but just to mention that we will have future videos covering other common utilities and TEP's old rate structure, which was a slightly different format. Just a little bit to introduce Sunbright Solar, if you're not already familiar with us. We are one of Southern Arizona's best regarded solar installers. Among other things, we are an A+ rated Better Business Bureau business and rated 4.9 and 5.0 stars on all of the major platforms, including Google and Facebook, and also have a thriving business built on word of mouth, whether you talk with your neighbors or check us out on websites like Nextdoor. You'll see that a lot of people have good things to say about us. On top of that, we are a Panasonic Elite installer, which means that we are working with some of the best equipment in terms of both solar panels and the new Evervolt battery system. So I'll hand it over to Dan in just a little bit, but I do want to ask, what is the main thing we're looking at when we are looking at the bill?
Well, understanding TEP bills to start off with was not an easy thing prior to going solar. With solar, there's an additional layer of complexity. And ultimately, if solar's working, it's going to be reflective on our bills, right? Which is the ultimate goal for most people adopting solar. So I'll kind of start off with TEP billing as it is to start off with. It's a complex bill. It was before solar, it's still complex with solar. And what I mean by that is that, similar to a water bill, TEP is a tiered rate structure. So the more we use, the more we pay per unit of energy or per gallon in that analogy there. But there's more to it than that. There is taxes built into our utility bills. So if you use the same amount of power and you live out in the county or in the heart of the city, you pay a slightly different rate. Like I said, the more we use, the more we pay with the tiered rate structure. There's also winter rates, which are less expensive than the summer rates. When we tend to use more power, the cost goes up. And to add another level of complexity, there is on-peak and off-peak, meaning that depending on the time of the day, they're going to charge us a different rate. And so typically we look at the summer rates because that's when they're more expensive. And we have an on-peak time of 3 to 7 p.m., which, costs slightly more. It's still a tiered rate structure in that period of time. And then there's off-peak, which is its own tier, which is a little bit less for electricity. It's actually kind of a benefit to solar because typically in the summer months, we're still generating power well into the afternoon hours. But understanding our bill is not the easiest thing. But once you got it, it's kind of like riding a bicycle. It's pretty easy once you understand it. It's just a little bit complex. So purpose of this video is to just kind of put it out there and give some full disclosure on how to read it and how to interpret the bill and what's going on. One thing I will say is that, TEP as a utility company, when it comes to our billing and solar specifically, they don't fully care about the whole picture about it. What TEP really is concerned with is the amount of power they sent to you so that they can bill you appropriately. And then also with our export rate structure, how much power we've exported them so that they can compensate or credit us based upon that. So it doesn't actually give the full picture of how much power we're using in our bill. When you only have one source of electricity before solar, you do get to see that, right? I mean, how much power you use all comes from TEP, all flows to the meter, and then is all reflected on that bill. When you have solar, you essentially have two power sources for the house. One is your home power plant, in this case solar, and then the other is the utility company, which tends to supply us power when solar is not working, i.e. the nighttime. So obviously we're looking at how do we read our bill, and we're going to go over that, but we're going to go over the full picture of that. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick screen share, and we're going to pop up with a bill. Stand by for that. Is that visible?
Yep, I see the Solar Edge information.
Dashboard? Okay. I think we're going here, right? Can we see this, Bill?
Yep, see the bill now.
Okay, so this is the bill. What you'll see at the top is the rate structure, which is residential service, TOU, or time of use, and then RCP is the shortened version of the export rate structure. This bill has a charge, or actually it's a credit of $10 on it right now. This is the first bill with solar, and it was dated 4/28 of last year. So the first thing we want to note is that TEP billing does not follow calendar months, right? It's not for the month of March or April. This one happens to be March 31st through April 28th. So we want to, take note of that up at the top, 3/31/20 to 4/28/20. That's the bill cycle for this one. Over here, you're being able to see how the breakdown is of when you brought power into the house, and that shows on peak and off peak. Off peak is usually the majority, and that is 83% was brought in at off peak, or 716 kilowatt hours, and 143 was brought in during on-peak hours at 143.5 kilowatt hours. So we'll go down here, and this is the total billed usage, the total amount of power that was brought in, the addition of both of those. And we're going to go down and look at the actual bill itself. Boy, it's complex. So up here on the top, we have delivery. So there's a connection charge with solar, it's $10, and then you have a solar meter fee of $2.23 a month. So your total basic connection charge and meter fee is $12.23. There is a couple credits or adjustments that happen on a bill. One is a tax. This month, this bill received a $1.72 credit on the bill. And then if you go down, there's another charge right here known as the PPFAC. That's Power Purchase Fuel Adjustment Charge. So TEP, like most utilities, is interconnected, and they do buy and sell power with other utilities to meet the demands of their clientele and other utilities. And then they rectify the cost with us. So sometimes we're getting a credit, sometimes we're getting a charge on that side of things. And this month we got a $3 credit. So CR is credit there. There is other, state and, city taxes and things that go on. This bill is in the city here, so it's city tax charges. So you would think maybe we pay, 7 cents or 8 cents for power. No, it's usually close to double that when you add up all the little charges that are associated with usage. Some charges are fixed charges and they stay consistent. Some charges are based upon usage and they will change whether you use more or less power associated with it right there. So we have on peak and off peak. These are the two readings here that were up on the top of the bill. Off peak 716, on peak 143. If we go over to our usage information, we really want to care about two items here, and one is kWh. kWh stands for kilowatt hour. So if we want to put that into perspective, a kilowatt hour is 1,000 watts being powered consistently over the course of an hour. So imagine 100 or 10 100-watt light bulbs on for 1 hour. That's what's going to move the meter outside by one digit, and that's what's going to reflect on the bill here. Depending on whether we bring it in on or off peak, it'll show 1 right there. So that's a kilowatt hour. The other line item that's important is kBH, and this is exclusive to solar. It stands for kilowatt banked hours. So when we send 1,000 watts of our solar production to TEP over the course of 1 hour, it's going to move that meter 1 on the kBH side. So basically what we have is delivered and received from TEP. TEP delivers us kilowatt hours. TEP receives banked kilowatt hours from us. So we get compensated for our banked kilowatt hours. We get charged for our kilowatt hours that were delivered. What we want to see here is the two. And so they delivered, in this case, about 860 kilowatt hours, and the site delivered about 1,530, we'll call it 34 kilowatt hours. So we definitely sold them more than they sold us this month in this particular bill here. Typically what happens is in the shoulder seasons, which this is a bill from April, you tend to outproduce more than you consume, because at this point in the year, it hasn't gotten extremely hot in this region quite yet. So our production is high, our consumption is a little bit lower, and we should be ahead of the curve at this point, so long as your system is sized to meet a certain demand or criteria. Different system sizes are often, in relation to the amount of square foot roof you have available, the budget, and then just what size your system is in relation to your total consumption. So those are the two charges, and we're going to scroll down here and we're going to see that they are charging us and then they are crediting us. So I have the 8.68 kilowatt hour credit charge right there. So that's the excess generation. The costs are associated right here, although that's not all the cost, that's just the basic cost. Once you add them all up, it makes for a lot better. But if you look at it, the total cost came out to about $120, $123. And since we got a $133 credit, therefore we have a $10 credit on the account, which will then roll over to the following month. So oftentimes we build up credits and then use them up in the high usage season or towards the end of the summer, once days start getting shorter and we have monsoons, yet we're still using a lot of electricity. So monthly, the excess dollar amounts, should you have a credit, continue to roll over. And then once a year, they are rectified with the utility, October, November timeframe, when if you have a significant credit, they'll go ahead and issue you a check and move it to zero, and the year starts over again. So that's how that works. A lot of these little charges, I can explain all the little details, but it's not really important because they're not going to go anywhere. What really matters is the dollars and cents, and also having a full understanding of this. So kWh, I often refer to as nighttime power, or power that we used above what our solar was producing in that moment. So this house received from the grid 860 kilowatt hours, and then the house powers itself with solar during the daytime. So we actually used more than that 860 kilowatt hours. We're going to figure that out momentarily. And the system also produced more than what we sent to TEP. So I've seen some people get confused and they say, hey, I only produced 1,534 kilowatt hours. Well, that's not actually the case, because the house has first crack at the energy first. So when you self-power the house during daylight hours, a lot of your solar production actually gets absorbed. It's just the power that was left over that we produced but didn't consume that goes to TEP's meter and then gets compensated. So we need to figure all that out, and we can do that. One additional tool we're going to need to really get the full picture of it is our solar monitoring system. And that's going to give us the insights and report not only on the daily level, but really on the bill cycle level. So that's why I said when we started off, we need to pay attention to what the date range is, because our monitoring typically shows it in a monthly or a daily or a weekly basis. Our bills follow a bill cycle, right? So we can align our monitoring to review that, but that's what we're going to need to do. So this really shows what TEP cares about, to emphasize that. What did they send you? They sent this house 860 kilowatt hours. What did we send them for compensation? Well, we sent them 1,534 kilowatt hours. I'm rounding here. And then that translated into a bill credit of about $10 in change. So we want to see what's going on with our system. To do that, we're going to go to our monitoring. So allow me to bring up the monitoring here. Are you able to see that?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. So this is our monitoring. This is the system in action. It's in real time. We have what's being produced instantaneously, what the home is consuming. That's where a lot of this power goes. And then what's being sent to the grid. It's currently 1:21 p.m. on February 10th. So we are doing quite well in terms of production on this site right here. We can see that during the day, it's a gradual ramp up. There's our usage. If we look at our bill on this daily view here, we've got three things. We've got red, that's power being delivered, and that's going to happen, this is midnight, and then we approach, sunrise, which is right a little after 7 these days. It turns on and then takes over the load of the house. Blue is power that is self-consumed, and that never is going to show on TEP's bill. It's none of their business what's happening behind the meter. Like I said, they care about what they sent you and what we sent them. So blue is the self-consumed power, and then green is power we produced but we didn't consume, so then we therefore exported or sold the utility company that. So again, what reflects on our bill is the export, kBH, and the import, kWh, right here. So if the day were to stop right here, it would show that this house sold 18 kilowatt hours on the kBH side, and it brought in 13.4, 13 and a half. Of course, the day is not over, so this isn't going to end. You can look at it on a monthly, and it's going to show, on a daily basis, and these numbers are reflective. But again, the bill doesn't follow a month. It follows a bill cycle. So when we want to figure out what's going on in our bill cycle, we're going to go up to the report tab up here, and you're going to want to see periodic AC energy. That's alternating current. What is it produced periodically through a period of time? And in this case, we would go, okay, we're going to go back to, that's 20. We're going to go back to March 31st, and we're going to take this one, and we're going to go back to, whoops, that was 18. We don't want to go that far back. April 28th, right? And then we can have this come out in an Excel format, Adobe or HTML, up to you in terms of how you generate it. You click that, it'll spin the wheel for a second, and then you'll get a pop-up and you can download that. I have already done that for this site. So here we go. There it is. It shows the inverter, the serial number, and the date up here, 321 to 428. And then the AC energy, the total amount it produced was 2450. I'm going to round that to 2455. So 2455 kilowatt hours. But if we go back to this bill right here, only 1534 kilowatt hours was received by TEP. So if we want to find out our total usage, there's a way to do that. Here it is. What we take is the numbers from our bill. And that starts off with the delivered kWh. In this case, it was 860. We've got kBh, which is 1534. That was the energy received from our solar system by the utility company. And now we want to figure out maybe what we use totally, right? So to do that, you take your total solar production, in this case, 2455. You subtract the exported power because we didn't use that. We sold it to TEP. So that's going to be the 1534. And I'm not sure if this is able to be seen. Can you see that calculator on your screen there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So what we do is we would start off with the 2455. That's the total amount of solar energy produced. And we're going to subtract what we sold to TEP, right? And so that's the kBh number, which is minus 1534. Okay, so now we have 921. This is not shown on the bill anywhere. So this is what the house self-consumed. And then above that, when the sun goes down, we get delivered power from the utility company. So that's the kWh. So then you would add the 860 kilowatt hours in. And there you are. About 1,781 kilowatt hours is what the home consumed entirely. So if we didn't have solar, that would what the bill would be reflective of. Luckily, we have solar, and we now have a negative bill at this site, which is much beneficial and better for the long term there. So that is essentially how you read the utility bill. You look at the kBh, the kWh, see what did they deliver, what did they send, and ultimately what the net cost is with the utility company. If we want to find out what we're doing total, we would then use the bill and then this as well. Of course, the monitoring system does show that as well, and they might be off slightly. Their accuracy, usually the monitoring is accurate to 98%. So there is some little differences out there, but nonetheless, the monitoring will show it to you. But really, we want to go to the bill because ultimately that's what has a cost associated with it, right? So that's it in its nutshell. Do you have any questions on that, Ms. Cole?
No, that sounds good. And I know we also use kind of a rule of reference. Here we were looking at a bill that had solar, but somebody who doesn't have solar and who has Tucson Electric Power, even the hypothetical person who's paying $100 to $200, those people, we can confidently say it's smart to look at going solar, because actually even people paying less than $100 on average throughout the year, they are still looking at savings, even at those relatively lower numbers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if your bill is $40 or $50, there's a lot of, you got to look at it, buy it, have it installed, things like that. There's not a lot of people in that area. Solar is beneficial to everybody. We got to realize that we live in Southern Arizona, one of the sunniest places in the United States, and relatively low weather patterns. Solar just does great out here. Not to mention it does have some subsidies. This export rate structure is beneficial. We've got tax credits both on the federal level, and not everybody has this, but we have a state level tax credit as well as tax exemption. So there's no property tax on solar. There's no sales tax, unlike buying other home appliances like an air conditioner. So solar makes sense, and making sense makes dollars. So definitely there, and it's always better than the alternative, because if we think about what a utility bill is, in an electric bill, it's a cost of living, right? We cannot get around paying for electricity. And historically, before solar really became advantageous or cost effective, we were at the mercy of the utility companies, and they know that they're monopolistic. And so we have inflation, right? Utility bills are a cost of living and an inflationary one at that. So solar is now a second option. It's generally better unless your house is covered in shade or something like that. it's going to be advantageous for you. You know, they pay themselves back in less than half of what their warranty period is. And just because their warranty period expires at 25 years doesn't mean they die, right? Like my water heater is 20 years old and it had a 5-year warranty on it, still working. So same thing with solar. It's very beneficial on a number of levels. If you just want to, you know, look at the financial side, it's a great investment. Generally produces high single digit or low double digit rates of return, which is great for an investment, especially considering that it's got a very low level of risk. It's also great for the environment because, you know, our environment, you know, we use a lot of water to create electricity out here, and that's kind of a scarcity in Southern Arizona. We do have climate change to contend with. It's much better for that. Let's also not forget that when we put solar on our roof, we shade our roof and our roofs heat up during the day, causing us to use more energy. I can go on the benefits of solar, not really the point of this particular you know, video here, but nonetheless, solar is beneficial and generally beneficial for all parties involved. Lots of good reasons to go solar, but ultimately you know, it makes financial sense, and people can purchase solar in a number of ways. You don't have to have all the money up front. You know, large purchases like houses, people rarely pay cash entirely for their house outright. Oftentimes they're financed, and we can finance them in a number of ways. I mean, if you have cash, great, we can do that. Cash is king, but we have you know, financing in different terms. If you can take our extremely long financing with low interest rates, there's some fees associated with that, but that's buying solar on a cash flow basis. If we know that we're spending, you know, $200 worth of electricity, we can get that monthly payment down. You're just paying a solar loan payment versus a utility bill, and really make a good dent in that and save a high percent off what you would be paying. Because remember, you're paying for power one way or another. Or we have like kind of the middle of the road, the shorter term financing, no dealer fees associated with that. You get a little bit less day one savings, but it's still better than the current utility rate. We also have to remember that when you get a loan, loans are fixed payments, right? So you know what the cost is going to be. Utility rates are not the same. As of January 1st, 2021, we just had another rate increase. You know, what a lot of people don't know, or probably do know, but haven't had it said to them, is that utility rates are increasing faster than the level of inflation, right? So, I mean, things naturally go up with time, but when you start rising higher than what everything else is going up, that's problematic because, you know, we fall on hard times. We can shut the cable off. We can, you know, not get our nails done or you know, not that I do that, but, you know, Netflix, those kinds of things, those can go. But that water bill, that electric bill, and that rent or mortgage payment, that stays. And so being able to mitigate that with the advent of solar is a real advantage, especially here in Southern Arizona.
Yeah, you really covered, I mean, I did have this question, but you've really covered it. Solar being a really pretty unique way of investing, not only in your home, but just in your financial outlook. Oh, and the other thing is, of course, the Arizona Corporation Commission. People don't know, but it actually is really predictable that they will, the rules are written to permit the utility companies to raise rates every single year, a maximum amount, and predictably, you know, except for this past year in 2020, they did delay it a little bit, but predictably they take the max allowance allowed rate raise every single year.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to go for it because ultimately, you know, most utilities, TEP included, are investor-owned utilities. That's for profit, and so their goal is ultimately profit. And, you know, they have their own PR and they put some spin on things, and you know, the different people have slightly different perspective. I admit that I'm biased because I work in the solar industry, but you know, the honest truth is that the cost of utility rates are going to rise. You know, one thing that we can control out of that is that, you know, the Arizona Corporation Commission regulates the utilities here that you know, we're subject to their rates, and the Arizona Corporation Commission is an elected body. So, you know, I encourage everybody to pay attention and to do some voting when those seats become available, because it does affect our long-term, you know, cost of living out here in Southern Arizona. We obviously want to, you know, pay less for the things we absolutely have to have. Discretionary spending is discretionary, but cost of living spending, it's in our best interest to keep that down, whether that be residential or business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're about done unless you have anything to add.
No, other than, we're always very helpful or willing to be helpful, with billing questions and how they work. We're going to try to, kick out these videos, which are going to go over different utilities because we service all of Arizona and there's a lot of utilities here in Arizona. We have APS that services the majority of Phoenix, also the Red Rock region, kind of, in between Tucson and Phoenix. SRP is South Phoenix. Trico services the outskirts of Tucson. TEP is the majority. We also have a large amount of customers, south of us, which could be Unisource, it could be APS, it could be Trico. It's very mixed match. And then out towards the Bisbee, Sierra Vista, Hereford area, we've got lots of installs, Wilcox included, and that's Sulphur Springs Valley Electric as well. And each utility has their own nuances, their own tiers, their own little charges here and there that are a little bit different. General concept tends to apply, and TEP was a good one because TEP is one of the more complex bills in terms of all the things they list out in itemize versus other utilities. Those charges are still there, but they just kind of blanket them into one charge. So starting with TEP is very, very easy and advantageous to go with. But happy to discuss any other electric bills. Usually, if you view this one, you'll probably have enough of an understanding to interpret the other bills and their charges as well. But again, we're always very happy to help with that. And then also, paying attention to your monitoring system is important because even with solar, how we use power does matter. They buy back our excess power, but self-consumption power is essentially what TEP or any other utility I just named would have charged us, which is why we're putting this consumption metering in. And we can see in real time, whether we're on our smartphone app or on our desktop, or we have the kiosk view open, what's happening, what's going on with our solar, what's going on with the house or business, and then what's going on with the relationship with the grid. And doing some power shifting to avoid on peak and to use self-consumption also improves our financial metrics. So we do have control over what we can choose for our utility now, even though we're not in a deregulated market, but we also have some control over to the financial outcome and what that bill ultimately looks like just with our own habits. And whether we choose to exercise those or not is entirely up to you. No judgment either way. If you go about how you were living with solar just like you did before, fine. If you make some changes, run those appliances during the day, like if you have a pool pump, run it 10 to 2, those kinds of things are beneficial. But ultimately, it's your power plant, you own it, it's your solar. We're here to help, and interpreting the bill is something we're always willing to help on, as well as answer all those nuanced questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, even just being informed, you can be a lot more strategic just about when you are using major appliances and so on. So wonderful. Yes. Well, we will have future videos. Trico is probably up next, so we can look forward to that. But like you said, TEP was a great example. And just a couple of other Sunbright Solar announcements. We have had great growth over the last couple of years, and we certainly will be hiring and are hiring presently. So please check out recent blog updates or our Indeed Sunbright Solar page for postings. And then another thing that we are very excited about is to be returning to the Tucson Festival of Books, albeit virtually this year. We are a longtime sponsor, and we are participating, of course, in the digital festival this year with fun content and other items, and we'll be a part of it in future years as well. So keep an eye out for that. That is coming March 6th and 7th, and there's already some cool stuff out there.
Thank you, Nicole. All right.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. You have a good day, and catch you later.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You too. Bye-bye. And let me get to this.